It was at Wydene that I met Sean, which has been a very important friendship in my life, a huge friendship in my life. I always felt a bit of an outsider, and that might perhaps explain why Sean and I were so close, because he came in late. Like me, he didn't have the local accent, and so I think to an extent we both felt like outsiders in the place, and that probably formed quite a big bond between us. So this is Sean, to whom the second Harry Potter book is dedicated, and Ron owes a fair bit to Sean.
Whoa!
I never set out to describe Sean in Ron, but Ron has a Seanish turn of phrase.
Amazing. Can you imagine the look on McGonagall's face if we were late? That was bloody brilliant.
Oh, thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley.
I think with the Ron character, I think what comes through, to me anyway, maybe I've misinterpreted it, is that he's always there or thereabouts, well-intentioned.
He's always there when you need him. That's Ron Weasley. Sean was the first of my friends to pass his driving test. And he had this old Ford Anglia, clapped-out Ford Anglia, turquoise and white, which is now quite famous as the car that the Weasleys drive, where I was obviously going to give the Weasleys Sean's old car. And that car was freedom to us. My heart still lifts when I see an old Ford Anglia, which is a bit sad.
It was as though they had been plunged into a fabulous dream. This, thought Harry, was surely the only way to travel. Past swirls and turrets of snowy cloud, in a car full of hot, bright sunlight, with a fat pack of toffees in the glove compartment, and the prospect of seeing Fred and George's jealous faces when they landed smoothly and spectacularly on the sweeping lawn in front of Hogwarts Castle.
He was the coolest man. In school, he had a turquoise Ford Anglia.
Turquoise Ford Anglia.
And you were pretty cutting edge, I think.
I was at those days, yeah.
Yes.
It's all gone horribly wrong since, but...
Spandau Ballet haircut. Sorry.
And of an evening, she'd phone up and say, come and pick me up, and I'd drive down there, and we'd head off somewhere else in the car. So the
And
car
sit
became...
under the Severn Bridge.
Sit under the Severn Bridge or elsewhere.
And discuss life. And drink.
Absolutely.
It's a very sad life, isn't it? This was what we thought was exciting when we were 17. We used to sit down here in a Ford Anglia. Yeah, those urban kids, they don't know what they miss.
J.K. Rowling escaped small-town life by attending the University of Exeter. There she earned a degree in French and classics before moving to London. Then a bombshell hit. Her mother, Anne, had been battling with multiple sclerosis for a decade when the disease took her life.
Mum dying was like this depth charge in my life. The pain of her going and just missing such a huge part of her life. She's 45 when she died, which is far too young to die, far too young to leave your family, never knew what we all ended up doing and so on. For Mum, there would have been a particular glory in being a writer, because she was the real book lover. And so it does add a little bit of poison to the knife, if you like, that the one thing that I think she really would have prized, she never knew. Perhaps 2 or 3 days after I had the idea for Harry, I disposed of his parents in quite a brutal way. It didn't read in a cruel way, but I mean it was very cut and dried, nothing lingering, no debate about how it had happened, and at that stage no real discussion of how painful that was going to be. Well, of course, Mum died 6 months after I'd written my first attempt at an opening chapter, and that made an enormous difference because I was living it. I was living what I'd just written. The Mirror of Error said, he's absolutely entirely drawn from my own experience of losing a parent. 5 more minutes, just please God, give me 5 more minutes. It would never be enough.
Mum? Dad?
After 5 minutes of telling her all about Jessie, and, you know, because she has a grandchild who obviously she never saw, and then I'd be trying to tell her about the books, and then I'd realise that I hadn't asked her what's it like to be dead. Fairly significant question. But I can well imagine that happening. But it would never be long enough. That was the point of chapter 10. You know, it's tougher on the living, and you've just got to get past it. Death is an extremely important theme throughout all 7 books. I would say possibly the most important theme. If you are writing about evil, which I am, and if you are writing about someone who's essentially a psychopath, you have a duty to show the real evil of taking human life.
What is this magic?
More people are going to die. And there's at least one death that is going to be horrible to rewrite actually, because it's already written. But it has to be.
Some parents have questioned whether children can cope with the darker side of the books.
It's very interesting how parents think that they have the right to dictate to you because you're reading materials for their children. I got a horrible letter on book 2, very, very stuffy letter from a mother saying, this was a very disturbing ending, and I'm sure a writer of your ability will be able to think of a better way to end the next book. So basically, liked it till 2/3 of the way through, but if you could really address this issue in future, and I'll be back in touch if I find you unacceptable. And it was at that point I snapped, and I wrote back and said, don't read the rest of the books. Yours sincerely, Jo Rowling. There's no point. I mean, there's no point. I'm not taking dictation here. Do I care about my readers? Profoundly and deeply. But do I ultimately think that they should dictate a single word of what I write? No. No. I am the only one who should be in control of that. And I'm not writing to make anyone's children feel safe.
1999 marked J.K. Rowling's transformation from popular author to international superstar with the launch of Book 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. For the first time ever, 3 books by the same author topped the New York Times bestseller list. Her book signings began to resemble rock concerts. At the stroke of midnight on July 8, 2000, Pottermania took hold with the release of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Thousands of fans waited in lines for hours for a copy.
Don't read the ending before the beginning, don't do that! Oh, God, this is definitely not the way it's supposed to start.
In Toronto, an audience of 12,000 gathered for the biggest book reading ever. J.K. Rowling was terrified.
I've never been good at speaking in public. In fact, it's borderline phobic. And I thought, what have I done? I felt so pathetically, woefully inadequate to the task ahead. It's me with my book, shaking. And I had 2 earplugs, so I could only very distantly hear the noise of the crowd.
Morning. I am delighted and terrified to be here, to be honest with you.
So I did my reading, and once I was up there, I was actually okay.
That Dudley kept running his hand nervously over his backside and walking...
And then I finished, and I said, thank you very much, that's whatever I said. And I just wanted to hear what it actually sounded like. So I took out one of the plugs, and it was as though my eardrum exploded. I actually heard the noise that everyone else could hear in the stadium. It was unbelievable. If you could take me back and you were able to tell me exactly what has happened, first off, I wouldn't believe you at all. Then if you managed to convince me of the truth, then I don't know what I would have done, because I would have thought, well, I won't be able to handle that. I won't be able to cope with that, so I don't know what I would have done. And there'll be people watching this who will never believe that because of the money. But the reality of it has been a strange and terrible thing at times.